Military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy will remain in effect for the foreseeable future, at least. Senate Democrats failed to muster the 60 votes needed to push forward a bill that contained language to repeal the policy. Joining us now, Fred Sainz, the Vice President of Communications at the Human Rights Campaign, and Elaine Donnelly, the President of the Center for Military Readiness. Thanks for being with us, both of you, this morning.
Hi.
Thank you.
Fred, let me start with you. What was your reaction yesterday when you heard about the vote?
Well, after 17 years of hard work by many and a policy that goes against the national security interest of the United States, it was obviously a disappointment, but we'll wait for the session that follows the elections in order to finally get it done.
And Elaine, your reaction?
It was a great victory for the military. The United States Senate fulfilled its responsibility for oversight on military affairs. They did not allow the majority leader to ram through legislation that would be harmful to the military, to do so in a bill that was loaded up with other social issues as well. I was very proud of the senators, and it was a bipartisan vote. There is no good reason to repeal this law regarding homosexuals, bisexuals, lesbians, transgenders in the military. This is a very complicated issue. The troops have not been heard from yet. So the senators did the right thing, and I would predict it will not pass in the lame duck session either.
Yeah, Fred, do you think we can still get this through at some point? And
virtually everything Elaine has said is completely untrue. This is a policy that is long past time to go ahead and implement. Elaine knows quite well that it hurts our national security interest when we have over 65,000 gays and lesbians serving right now who are basically being forced to lie. Every study, every military, there are over 30 countries that have successfully integrated gays and lesbians to their military. It's in our national security best interest to go ahead and do this.
Yeah,
Not so. Right now, the law says that homosexuals are not eligible to be in the armed forces. If there are some who are there, even though the law says otherwise, that is a choice they made. I do fault the Pentagon for the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, which is different than the law. We support the law. There is nothing in the law that says you can be in the military and be homosexual as long as you don't say that you're homosexual. So we have to define terms. As for the other countries, there's only 25, not over 30, that have homosexuals in their militaries.
Including most of our allies in NATO.
Out of 25 out of 200, all right, many of them very small, Luxembourg, Slovenia.
Australia, Israel, the United Kingdom, virtually every European country. What makes them better than we?
These militaries are not role models for our military. We are role models for them.
But Elaine, we fight alongside with them in Iraq and Afghanistan every day. They're certainly good enough to fight with us in those countries. What makes them better than we are?
Elaine, let me ask you this. Based on the point that you're making, what is it, and you mentioned this initially, how is it that you feel this could hurt our military?
Oh, very much. First of all, the number of discharges before I was interrupted is less than 1%, small number. But we would lose thousands of people because of a policy known as zero tolerance. And I'm sure you support this. It means that if you do not agree that lesbians, gays, bisexuals, and transgenders should be in the military, that means your career is over, because you are out of step with zero tolerance. That's what happens when you pitch this as a civil rights issue. That would do great harm to our military.
Her assertions are completely antiquated, but more importantly, they're false. Every single study that has been done on this issue has concluded that gays and lesbians can serve effectively in our military. The assertions that she makes are part of a bygone era where she doesn't give enough credit to our soldiers that are fighting right now alongside 65,000 gays and lesbians. They know that they're there. Moreover, and more importantly, 14,000 qualified and courageous gays and lesbians have been discharged from critical posts, including linguists, pilots, simply because they were honest enough to admit who they were. That is a blight on our nation's history, and certainly not a disservice to our national security interest. And Elaine knows all of this.
You know, everyone can serve our country in some way, but not everyone is eligible to be in the armed forces.
Well, that's the question, Fred, is that as passionate as you may be and as passionate as so many others may be, there is still a battle that is brewing right now. There are still legal issues, and this does have to get through Congress at some point. Now, yesterday, we know this wasn't the end-all. This was an attempt to further the discussion on this. So what does it take at this point to make sure that you know, if this is what you're fighting for, that you can continue to be heard and perhaps make changes at some point?
Well, one thing that I would agree with Elaine on is the way that Don't Ask, Don't Tell was made law 17 years ago was through the National Defense Authorization Act. So unfortunately, or for better or for worse, it needs to be made illegal again, or the law needs to be taken off the book through the same vehicle. So there is a study going on right now at the Pentagon, and incidentally, the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the Commander-in-Chief all support repeal. Once that study is completed on how, not if, but how, to integrate gays and lesbians into the military, we need a vehicle to do that, and congressional action is the way to have it done.
On the contrary, we do not agree. The law was passed in 1993. It says that homosexuals are not eligible to be in the armed forces. But Bill Clinton instituted an administrative policy called Don't Ask, Don't Tell that says you can as long as you don't say that you're homosexual. We have never supported that administrative policy, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but we do support the law. It is a sound law. It is supported by the majority of people in the military. If you repeal it and you say we're going to have an LGBT law for the military, that means that persons living in close quarters with no privacy, in essence, will have to expose themselves to persons who may be sexually attracted to them. Now, women in the military would never stand for that. You see, the whole civil rights argument breaks down when you realize that sexuality matters. Excuse me, this is your argument.
Issues associated with this. What we're really talking about here is a national security issue where it's in the best interest of the American military and our country in order to have qualified and courageous individuals that want to serve our country do so. All of those other issues, 30 countries have found that gays and lesbians can be successfully integrated into the military. The fact that she chooses to ignore that Israel, Argentina, the United Kingdom, and Australia can do so, but the United States can't, is really a discredit to her and her position.
Every major advocacy group says all sexual minority groups are going to be living together, no separation, no privacy, no separate but equal. There is no dispute about this, all right? Now, why are you trying to disavow your own position?
And you know as well as I that the current military code makes sexual relations illegal.
What I'm telling you is that women would never stand for this, women in the military. And yet you're expecting not just women, but men too, to deal with all of these sexual issues, sexual tension
sexual issues
on
do you
either side of
either
side of the
They are a creation of your imagination.
Excuse me. So you really don't want to accept your own reality that you are promoting. The LGBT law for the military.
All that I'm promoting is that courageous men and women should be able to serve their country.
You want to live in a dream world.
You will never be able to deny that.
You want
Gays
to live
and
in a dream
lesbians deserve the ability to serve their country.
They can serve their
and
country
it's in our
ways.
national security best interest. If they can serve in Congress, they certainly can put their lives on the line for our country.
Are you equating Congress with the life on a submarine?
We are suggesting.
Are you equating working in Congress with life on a submarine?
All people should be able to serve their country, Elaine. There is no way that you can ever deny that 65,000 courageous gays and lesbians are serving our country.
I know you're disappointed. You lost the vote yesterday.
We will live to fight another day.
You did not
this
make
issue
your
will
case.
change.
We certainly appreciate your passionate views for both of you. Unfortunately,
we did not lose on the issue.
We're running very short on time. We do appreciate hearing from both of you.
History is not on your side, my friend.
And unfortunately, it's going to be Congress that's going to be taking this up. But I know that you're both going to be making your statements, and we do appreciate that. Thanks both of you for joining us, and I'm sure we'll chat with you again.
Thank you.
We're going to